Yeah, I'll keep this short. We were going to talk about gardens and how to make your garden a safe haven for wildlife. Is there anyone here who is already doing that? Already quite a few. Excellent. To avoid covering a lot of stuff you're already going to know, and because we have a smaller number of people here, we can probably just keep this interactive. I'll ask you guys a lot of questions and try and get some information on what you would like to know, if there's any knowledge gaps that you may have. Essentially, I'll just run through my own bio very quickly. Yes, obsessed with possums, totally and utterly obsessed. Interestingly enough, it was brushtails I was first obsessed with. I can't explain why that was. I was just drawn to them. We lived in the Gap, grew up there, so we had plenty of them around us. Bushfires 2019, sure a lot of you here were similarly affected by those. Anyone here who was directly affected by the bushfires a few years ago? Yeah. That was the moment when we decided to go into caring, because obviously it was looking out the back. It was heartbreaking what we saw. Devastation. We had sugar gliders turning up with lung damage. They couldn't survive. Brushtails, ringtails, wallabies. Yeah. So that was the moment when I decided, look, I'm going to combine that original passion I had for possums with my new interest in taking care of our environment. So we joined the Granite Belt Wildlife Carers group and do a little bit of training, and you start off with either possums or macropods, so you have a choice. There was only one real choice for us, wasn't there? And I'll get to the good part of the story because you're going to get a look at these little things. As I said, brushtails were where I thought we were going to be headed. So got the first call, you got a couple of animals that need to be taken care of. Brushtails, here we go. No. We got some little ringtails. And once you've had a ringtail joey in care, you won't go back. These things, I'll quickly bring them round, give everyone a quick look. Ringtail joeys are the most adorable things you'll ever see, aside from sugar gliders perhaps. Sugar gliders are pretty damn cute too, so I'll quickly bring them around. There's two in there, two little females. They are, aren't they? They are. They're actually getting big now too. These two have been in care for a couple of weeks now. The younger one's been with us for about a week. They grow quickly, so they were much smaller than this when they first came into care. Much smaller. These two are doing really well. Two little girls.
So where do they come from?
Local.
And why? Why were they abandoned?
Both have different stories. I didn't get the complete story, but the first one was found under her dray. The dray's the nest, and there they are. Not too sure exactly what happened, but yeah, they are orphans essentially. They actually look a bit like sugar gliders, that one there. And
oh, cool. I've seen two in the wild.
have you?
Yeah, one across the road in front of me. Little ringtail.
Oh, they're beautiful, aren't they? They shake their little tail.
I'd asked somebody what they were.
They're gorgeous. Okay, so I'll let them have a rest now. So, as I said, obviously, my expertise is going to be with possums, but obviously that's not all you're going to find in your backyard. Is everyone here local, or have you travelled? Local. Okay, so what would you see typically in your backyards? Obviously, we've got possums, we've got common brushtail, common ringtail. What else do we have around here? We do have Wallabies. I got our macropods, and we have quite a few different type of wallabies. Got the little rednecks, swamp wallabies, very common. Nick, what have you got at your place again? Whiptails.
We've got little bettongs.
The bettongs.
And we also have bandicoots as well, so any size up to the regular.
So, full range of macropods. Macropods being your the wallabies and kangaroo families. What else do we have? Echidnas. Yes, we actually had one just a couple of weeks ago. They're beautiful. They'll be out at the moment. They're heading into their mating season as well. So keep an eye out for echidnas. Yes, yep. Turtles and tortoises. Quolls. Someone mentioned quolls. Definitely lots of quolls around here. Koalas, if you're lucky. We've had koalas through our backyard. Many different types of lizards. Again, they'll be out. We've seen the snakes as well. There was a red belly black and a brown we saw on the road this morning. Microbats, yes. Yeah, lots of microbats. You'd be surprised how many microbats just are around. The microbats do really well, actually. Probably shouldn't say this, but they do thrive on burnt areas. What they love are the hollows up in trees. When it's all burnt out, it's easier for them to access. Found they were the first animals, one of the first to return after the bushfires. Lots of microbats. You'll see them on dusk, so just after the sun goes down, there'll be clouds of them. Lots of them around. Yep, we have bandicoots around, definitely. I think anything else, obviously the birds, lots of bird life around here. Lots of birds. Which brings me to our first point. With your garden, it's the best way to set it out. Obviously, there are two considerations when you're building a garden for wildlife. The first one's going to be cats. We'll get this out of the way, right up front. Cats don't belong in a garden for wildlife. They just, unless you've got some kind of control on them, some people do. A good mate of mine, he's got a lovely cat that he's able to keep a very close eye on. That cat's not allowed without a metre or two away from him at all times. The rest of the time when it's not outside with him, it's inside the house. Cats definitely not in our garden for wildlife. The other thing is fires. Obviously, you're going to have to be aware of your requirements, whatever they may be for your particular area around fires. So when we're talking trees, lots and lots of trees, obviously, but just be aware that your council in your area, there's not much I can say about those. You have to follow those specific requirements, whatever they may be. The trees themselves, we're lucky here, very lucky. I think it was mentioned earlier that the trees just do want to grow. And we've got some really, really, really good species. The possums in particular are very happy with what we've got here. Does anyone know what the major species are we have here? We'll start with the gums. We have some fantastic gums. They are related though, aren't they? Yeah, we'll start with the Angaphoras or the Angaphoras. They are endemic to this area. I think the rough bark apple is the major species here. You'll see it everywhere. I'm sure most of you already have them in your backyards. We certainly do. Very, very important food source, particularly for the ringtail, but the brushtails also love them. And what they love with the Angaphoras is right at the top, this time of year, it's perfect the way it all works out because these girls would have been born probably about a month ago, so towards the middle end of winter, which means they're just starting to wean now, and they're going from milk to leaves. What's happening now at the moment? The Angaphoras in particular, they're starting to get their new growth. New growth on the Angaphora, they're not interested at all in the older leaves. You see the Angaphora leaves, they're quite thick and hard, aren't they? They're not appetizing to a possum. Not even the brushtails will touch them. But the new shoots, and they'll go right up the top where they are trying to think of a good way to describe this, but they're like, I guess you could say they're like chocolate for us, or whatever your strongest desire is. That's what the Angaphoras are to the ringtails in particular. They can sniff them across the room. If I've brought in freshly cut leaf, the girls will know about it. I've put that anywhere near where they're sleeping. They'll be awake in less than a second, and it'll all have gone within a minute. They absolutely love fresh Angaphora tips. The same goes for, not to quite the same extent, obviously they have a taste preference. They're like us as well. Angaphoras will be first. Actually, no, there's one other thing before Angaphoras they'll go for first. Sorry? Prava would be the next in line after the Angaphora. That's the other one I spend all my time collecting. Prava. Prava. Can't get enough. That's a eucalypt. It's an ornamental, common in English gardens actually. It's not a native, but the ringtails in particular, you can't stop them eating this. It's not possible to stop them eating. It's a little shrub. It's got thorns on it. Yeah, roses. If ringtails need tannin, not much more than the brushtails do. That's for one very important reason. The ringtails, their gut is much more like a koala's, very similar to a koala, where they have a two-step digestive process, which means that tannins from melaleucas, from rosehip, and this is why they love the roses. They're not just sweet, but they want those tannins in the hip. Those tannins keep their gut healthy, basically. So they would process their food twice. During the day when they're sleeping, they eat their pap, which is it's not poo. It's very similar to poo. That gives them a second stage digestion. They get more nutrients from what they're eating. So very well developed. And those tannins, as I said, from the bark, from melaleucas, from rosehip, that keeps their gut healthy. Brushtails, on the other hand, they're survivors, aren't they? They'll turn up absolutely anywhere. So they'll eat Angaphora. Again, they love Angaphora. So if you've got Angaphora there, you'll have possums nearby somewhere, particularly if you've got a good stand of them. The pravas as well. Brushtails, actually, their digestion slows down, or the digestive process slows down when they eat eucalypts. It's kind of like their backup food. Brushtails, because they're survivors, they have a wide range of foods they can eat. So they'll go to the eucalypts as a last choice. It slows their gut down when they do eat eucalypt because it's preparing them for hardship, whatever that may be. So again, Angaphoras, eucalypts, but harder to grow here, but lily-pillies in the garden. I'm getting some set up at our place very soon. Lily-pillies and plumbago, delight for possums. Obviously, macropods much easier. What are your macropods going to eat? They will eat your roses. They'll eat your parsley, they'll eat your veggies, but they're mostly interested in your grass. So if you've got a little bit of grass there, keep a little bit of grass spare. That will keep your wallabies and kangaroos going, if you have them around. What else can I say? Spacing. Again, spacing's really important. A particular thing for having a healthy wildlife population in your garden and making sure that they're safe while they're visiting. The possums are territorial, very territorial. Kangaroos and other macropods, of course, they'll just come and go. But the macropods, the arboreal marsupials, the sugar gliders, they are territorial. They will move around a lot within the territory. For example, we have probably 2 or 3 family groupings in between our back and our front yard. You won't see them in the same trees every night. They will not be in the same nesting place every night. They're going to come and go between about 3, 4, 5 different nesting spots. And that's simply just to confuse predators and to also rotate their harvesting, because they're essentially harvesting. They go up a tree, they're going to eat all the tips that they can in that night. A few 5, 6 days later, they're going to move on to the next area of their territory, and they'll harvest there. So what do you think we might need, CL? If we've got possums in the one territory, again, the macropods we don't need to worry too much about. They'll just do their thing. But the possums, what do we think we might need to help them in their territory? Sorry? No, you're right. Chip in. What were you going to say? Hollows, absolutely. Possums, brushtails are lazy. They won't build their own drays. Like the ringtails will build a dray. A dray is basically, you'll see them. They're a ball of leaves and sticks high up in a tree, not necessarily a food tree. They'll often build them in pines, which is definitely not a food tree. They'll build them anywhere they feel secure enough to build it. And sugar gliders will do the same thing. They can build these in a night. Doesn't take them long to build. So they can effectively, wherever they are, that's home for them. The brushtails, though, they definitely need hollows. I don't know whether they're just lazy, they haven't figured it out. They are not builders. So they'll turn up in your car. They'll turn up. We had to go and rescue one from the local service station. One turned up in someone's car and got a free ride into town. They'll turn up in your shed. They'll turn up in the rafters in your house, obviously. But hollows. The easiest way to give possums hollows is to install nest boxes. A couple of people make them locally. They're very easy to do yourself. The original plan was to bring in the what I need to make a. You can make ones particularly for ringtails out of the coconut fibre planter baskets. Get 2 of those together. You can wire them together with just the zip ties. There's a little bit more to it than that, but not that much more. I could put one together in probably 10 to 15 minutes. The trick is placing these. So you've got a nest box. You've got a planter. Yep.
You do it including the coconut fibre?
Yes, yeah.
Create a whole thing.
You do, yeah. That's the only real tricky bit. You might need a bit of strength to cut through the wire. It's not too tricky. As I said, I could put one together in about 15 minutes, probably blindfolded. But on YouTube, they have some absolutely fantastic tutorials for making these things. They are really easy to get together. As I said, it's just that cutting is probably the only step where if you don't have a lot of strength, you may need to get someone to help you. But otherwise, they're pretty straightforward. As far as locating them, I'll go back a step because I missed one step when I was talking about your placement of trees, didn't I? You want your trees to, again, being aware of whatever fire risks are in your area and whatever those requirements are. You want your trees to don't necessarily need to be close together at the trunk level, but when you get up the top, because the brushtails, ringtails particularly, they do all their travelling through the tops of the trees, through the canopy. So you want some overlap between the tops of your trees. That way, they're not going to have to come to the ground where predators are going to be. Overlapping trees, possums can stay up there. Nest boxes and the coconut fibre planters. Where do you place these? Have a good look up. You're not going to be able to reach right up to the top for obvious reasons. Some people are lucky and do have access to cherry pickers. I don't. I'm up there on a ladder. What you got to do, find a nice strong bough, something that's going to hold. Possums weigh almost nothing. Those little 2 together would be no more than 210 grams. between the two of them. So there's not a lot of weight there, but still, with all the wind, you do want to find something that's going to give them a bit of protection. Your protection itself is going to come from the leaves. So when you're placing them, you want to place them in a section that's ideally would be covered by leaves. Have some boughs covering over, lots of growth. Vines are fantastic. What are those local vines? I need to find out what they are. You do see they grow particularly around some of the gums.
With the white flowers.
Yeah.
That's a clematis.
I think that's the one, yeah.
Beautiful perfume.
I need to get some of those going in our backyard because, again, they provide much extra protection, and the possums will use those to start building their drays, their nests. We're running out of time. It just goes so fast. So I'll take some questions before we finish. If anyone, because from what you've said so far, everyone's pretty much already on their way to having a great garden. Does anyone want to have any specific information though? As I said, I really just know about the possums more than any of the other animals. So. Fantastic question. I know that they do say in droughts, really hot weather, to put some water out. That's mostly for not marsupials, the macropods. Possums up the tree, they'll collect dew. The little nooks and crannies will collect the dew as well, and they can remain there for a long time. Possums generally, they don't drink. Well, they do drink, but up there, they never really have to come to the ground to do that. So.
They were saying to put in the drought, they're saying to put water increase for koalas.
If you can do it, absolutely. There will be a lack of water up there, so if you can, definitely. For the possums in particular, for koalas, sure. For possums, don't worry too much because they will collect dew. They're very, very good at that. Very resourceful. It's a great question though, yeah. And we do put water out as well.
Tom, can I jump in with the last question?
Yep, go right ahead.
In case nobody's going to ask, if you live in town and you've got roses, what do you do to deter them from what they want to get?
I don't think there's much you can do to deter them. Not much you can do. Go ahead.
I soak chili cayenne pepper, about a tablespoon, in a cup of water for about 24 hours. Filter it out really well through 2 or 3 layers of tea towel. Put in a spray bottle and spray the rose leaves.
There you go. Give it a go.
But then whenever it rains or you water, you have to redo it. But it keeps them away. They don't like chilies on their lips.
No, I wouldn't either. They're very sensitive little lips, so yeah, that makes sense. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Don. That's been really fascinating, and you can see, how many people are really into getting the possums.
Excellent, thank you. Actually, I'll just add one very quick thing before we go. I've got some little brochures from our local wildlife group. That's essential. It's just got our rescue number, so if you come across any animal in distress, it's got a number to call so we can come out and help you. Thank you.
Thanks very much.